Who's friends with all the night dreamers, talking to you at night. Gary on the radio, but maybe he's not in sight. Bigfoot's on his tail, flying UFOs, that's right. Gary's Talk Show Radio, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday nights. If you need a friend to talk to, he will always be there. The Night Dreamers Talk Show will fix your despair. If you want to talk conspiracies, Night Dreamers is for you. Top secret case, alien space, it's Gary with the news. Tune in on the radio, don't let Big Brother know. They're listening to everything, even Gary's late night show. If you need a friend to talk to, he will always be there. The Night Show Dreamers Talk Show will fix your despair, because Gary's talking to you at night.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on Night Dreams with Gary Anderson do not necessarily reflect those of the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network, its hosts, staff, or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Listener discretion is advised. From deep within the broadcast bunker, a voice cuts through the static and smashes the silence. This is the show that rips the lid off reality, exposes the shadows, and dares to ask the questions no one else will. Get ready for truth at full throttle with the man himself, Gary Anderson.
And we made it to another Friday. Well, you know what? I am really frustrated. They're going to get rid of the pennies. They're not going to make any more. They're going to take them out of the circulation. And you know what's worse than that, JC? They're talking about the dollar bills very shortly. That's going to be history.
Yeah, I heard the same thing. Believe me, I've been hoarding all the pennies, especially the 1982 and olders, because, hey, remember what happened in 64? No more silver coins. And we bet you wish you had a bucket full of them now.
I wish I had money right now, but you know what good is it going to be if it's not going to be worth anything? But if you really think about that, right? They take the penny out. What happens if something comes to $1
Well, to me, that's a red flag. Tells you right there we're headed for some hyperinflation or something, because that means everything's going to get rounded up. You know that.
Well, how about we're going to go digital very shortly, and that's what they're setting us up for.
Yeah, that has a lot of red flags in it right there, I'll tell you.
I don't know. I just don't trust digital. No. If in the standpoint, I have so much problems with my debit cards and credit cards in the past and all that. I mean, all it takes is the bank to mess up, and then you got a problem. And, again, I know my daughter accidentally, she has a loan, and she made her loan payment. But, instead of clicking on the $200 payment, she clicked on $2,000. And then she realized, oh, my God, I clicked in $2,000. That's all my money. And she called up, the company, and they said, well, okay, it's no problem. But it's going to take up to 21 days to get a refund back into your account. And I started thinking, they probably love that when people do that, because look how much interest they're drawing.
Yeah, look at all the money. If they have a lot of people that do that, all that money they can put in an escrow to collect interest. You're right. Listen, that's a lot of red flags. A lot of things can go wrong. And you know very well when you go to a store, what happens if they don't have the internet, Gary? What happens?
Well, yeah. Well, power outage, the internet getting hacked or taken down. Anyway, let's get Guy Ticker on for a second. And then we got a great guest tonight. We're going to be talking remote viewing and so much here tonight with a great guest. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
The following is an NDTR editorial, opinion and comment. Thank you in advance for a moment of your time. So, how does this reporter see it? Here goes. Disclosure, the freak show under the big top. Folks, this isn't disclosure. It's a three-ring circus. Step right up under the world's most secure tent where the Pentagon plays dumb. Congress plays dead, and the American people are fed another bowl of government mush. They trot out AARO, the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, as if it's the ultimate answer to UFOs. Please. That's just a bureaucratic bearded lady. All show, no substance. They say they're investigating UAPs. What they're really doing is burying the truth under red tape and acronyms. Then you've got David Grush, a decorated intel guy, testifying that we've got non-human craft and alien biologics. Read that again. He didn't say maybe. He said we have them. And what does Congress do? Zip, nada, zilch, nothing. Turn the spotlight off and shuffle the act to intermission. The FBI? Missing in action. The Pentagon? Playing the world's longest poker bluff. The Disclosure Act? Chopped up. Like a sideshow sword trick. Gone. And let's not forget the private defense companies. Oh, they're in the tent, sitting on crashed debris, reverse engineering God knows what, while we're told nothing to see here. Lies, obfuscation, control. That's the real act. The freak show isn't the aliens. It's the cover-up. At Night Dreams Talk Radio, we see through the fog machine. We know the elephant in the tent isn't from Earth, and we're not letting this go. The curtain's lifting. The freak show is real. And guess what? They are running out of lies. And that's the way this reporter sees it. This has been an editorial comment on the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Dick Allgire is a veteran in the remote viewing field with one of the most robust portfolios of blind documented sessions. His work integrates multiple RV protocols and has explored compelling subjects, ranging from historical events like 9/11 and Roswell to future forecasts and group consciousness dynamics. While he's regarded as an authority within the remote viewing community, it is important to know that remote viewing isn't accepted by mainstream science yet.
Well, Dick, welcome to the show. How are you doing on this Friday night?
I'm doing great, Gary. I'm so thrilled to be with you. This is an honor to be on your program, and this is going to be big fun.
Oh, we're going to have a lot of fun. What got you into remote viewing?
Throughout my life, I had had little experiences, and I think every person in your audience, you, everyone else, has had moments where you've known something that you shouldn't know, where you've had a premonition, where you thought of an old friend that you hadn't thought of in 10 years, and then they call you, where a mother knows their children is in trouble instinctively. I'd had little episodes like that, and I just kind of put them aside as like, oh, that's a weird anomaly. I was a television newscaster. This would have been 1996, 97. I lived on the other side of the island in Hawaii, and I had a long drive to work over this beautiful highway called the Poly Highway. This was prior to the internet, and there was no way to go online to find the news of the day. You didn't get it on your phone. You couldn't go on a website. So as I would drive to work in the afternoon over the Poly Highway, I would have my radio on news radio, KHVH, the local news radio station in Hawaii, and they give little news updates. So I'm driving to work and I'd hear the 5-minute update. Go to work, do the news, get off at like 11 o'clock at night and drive over the Poly Highway through the dark, through this beautiful forest and beautiful landscape, but kind of a spooky drive at night. And Art Bell was on. And so I had never heard of Art Bell, but I'm driving home, my radio was tuned to the station, and I heard this voice. And the first time I heard him, he was interviewing John Mack. And I went, what's this guy talking about? And I realized it was people that were abducted, and this guy was a mainstream psychiatrist from Harvard. And I stayed in my car when I got home and listened to it. So I started listening to Art Bell, and he, of course, did segments on remote viewing. And I thought, if this is true, I have to learn it. So that's how I got interested in remote viewing.
Now, when you were a child, were you interested at all in any supernatural things or UFOs, or did you watch those, old B movies, with the aliens and all that?
Oh, of course. I was always interested in UFOs. Project Blue Book. There was a TV show on that, and there wasn't much material back in those days, but it was always of interest to me. I always thought it was a possibility. Yeah, there could be UFOs. So it wasn't a passion, but it was of interest to me.
How about after you started learning remote viewing, did you get inquisitive about ET?
Well, the remote viewing coincided with listening to the old Art Bell show. So that opened up the possibility of all these things, this alternative reality. So yes, remote viewing, ET, the whole paranormal, it all kind of opened up and became of interest at the same time.
Now, have you ever remote viewed an ET? And a question for you, do you think ETs are remote viewing us?
Oh, Gary, that's a great question. Okay, I have a good story on that one. Yes, I've done some ET targets. It would be not. I don't remote view many of them. Maybe 1% to 3% of the 1,000 or 1,500 targets I've remote viewed have been ET. My teacher, Glenn Wheaton, who was in U.S. Army Special Forces Intelligence, always shied away from ET. We'd ask him about UFOs, and he would just hedge his answer, say, "Well, it's you could imagine it's not unreasonable to think there's other life," but he avoided it, and he always wanted remote viewing to stand on its own. So anyway, I'm in class one night. We're doing a blind target. So working the protocols, he gives us just a target ID, which was a letter number identifier. No idea of what it could be. Totally blind. It's like target 1789-3746. So I'm sitting there doing it, and I sense this structure, and the structure is very secure, and it's on a piece of land kind of near ocean, and it's got fences around it and perimeters, and it's bristling with electronic like microwave towers and satellite dishes. And it's a very secure place, and they're doing communication stuff. And then I go on to the next bit of the protocol, and I look, and I'm looking out over the curve of the planet Earth. And I go, wow, that's beautiful. That's Earth. And I look again, and I see that I'm in some place, and that's kind of on a screen. And I draw that. And I go, well, now this is interesting. And I look, and there's a classic gray alien looking right at me, and I'm looking right at him. And this vision is, as a remote viewer, it swims into focus. It lasts for maybe 5-6 seconds. In that 5 or 6 seconds, the idea came to me, this guy saying, wow, funny earthling, that's quite a talent you have to be able to come here. That's a good job. Now get out of here. And I came back to my consciousness at my desk. So I drew that. And so I turned in this session to my teacher, and I was hesitant because it seemed so outlandish. And he just gave me a funny look and said, see, I give you interesting targets. So that was an interesting target. So now the rest of the story is I get the feedback, and he says the feedback was Dan Sherman, who is a gentleman who worked for the NSA in the Air Force Intelligence, I believe, wrote a book called Above Black, and he claimed that he was taught to telepathically communicate with aliens, which was pretty much the session that I had produced under blind circumstances for my teacher, who was a skeptic. Some weeks later, I'm listening to the Art Bell show, and Art goes, all right, we're going west of the Rockies. Hello, caller. And it's my teacher coming on, going, yeah, Dan, when you were in the NSA and traffic came in and started asking complex insider questions about the NSA, which Dan Sherman answered, and I'm sitting at home going, oh my goodness, Glenn, my teacher, is on Art Bell talking about this guy that telepathically communicated with aliens. I asked Glenn, did he check out? He said, yeah, Dan Sherman actually knew what was going on in the NSA, and his story seemed believable. So that's one of my most outlandish ET remote viewing sessions, Gary.
Now, do you think, ETs are remote viewing us humans? People being supposedly abducted and taken aboard craft, experimented on, but in implants and all this, but why would they need implants if they can remote view us?
Well, the implants is a whole different story, and I think certain human beings are given implants and upgraded, but my current mentor, who someone got a hold of me because of my remote viewing and explains how humanity works and how it's administered. He has a phrase that he uses, and the phrase is, who's looking through your eyes? So there may be beings that are experiencing our lives and our consciousness with us. That's a very deep concept, and it's not anything I've experienced directly through remote viewing, and I'd be hesitant to make claims. When you're a remote viewer, you're not omniscient. You don't have sudden all knowledge. You get little peeks and glimpses and brief meanings of a target, but you don't often understand the target in its totality.
How does remote viewing actually work? Can you explain that to people who don't know? How do you do it? Do you sit at a table, draw pictures, or does it come to you while you're sleeping at night? How's remote viewing work?
The form of remote viewing that I learned is very, very structured. It is like doing a Japanese tea ceremony. If you're familiar with the Japanese tea ceremony, they set up the teapot and the cup and the brush and everything has to be a certain way, and every motion is important and prescribed. So when I sit down and I sit at the desk I'm at, I put a red light on, I meditate a little bit, I put on a soundtrack that gives me theta waves, I put my pen on a stack of clean paper, I take a target ID, I pick up my pen, and I write I write ideogram on the page. I write page 1, Dick. I draw a line. I write the target ID. I write the target ID again. And then I close my eyes and I look for like 1001, 1000, second and a half. And that's the first contact. Then you create what are called ideograms, where you express the target imagery into a scribble on the page, and then you touch it. And touching that is a cue to your subconscious. So the way the remote viewing protocol works is it's setting up a prescribed query and response. And if you do the query and response in the same way, you train your subconscious to give you the information. When I begin a session, my contact with the target is about 1.5 seconds. So it's a bunch of very fast queries where I'm getting low-level data. Throughout the session, as you get deeper into it, you get into more of a daydreamy state, and then you have a little longer target contact. And then towards the end, after an hour and an hour and a half, I set the pen down. I actually do a mental exercise where I go to just in that place between sleep and awake, and then you can have a longer, more experiential. So it's very, very structured.
How long is your remote viewing sessions?
I'll work anywhere between an hour to an hour and a half to 2 hours. If I'm doing a good session that's very complex, I'll lose track of time. I'll start at like 7 o'clock at night, and I'll look up and it'll be after 9 o'clock. And then I go back sometimes, and then I go into a more altered state where I kick back and put some headphones on and have a soundtrack that puts me in an altered state. And I try to have experiential. So on a project that we're publishing out for subscribers, I'll sometimes work minimum 2 hours, sometimes 4 to 5 hours, broken up over 2-3 days.
Wow. Now, Dick, have you ever remote viewed something that it really shook you up, scared you, where you couldn't sleep because of it?
Well, I don't want to get too graphic, but I was doing a missing persons target, and it was blind. I didn't know that it was a missing person target, but there was a man that had abducted a young woman, and the target was trying to find out where her remains were, which I identified. What I drew looks exactly like the Google Earth. It was on a riverbank down an embankment, but he was taking her remains, and I got into his mind briefly, and it really shook me to the core because he had no sense of her as a human being. It was like taking out the garbage. He just was, I have to get rid of this. Like, this is a mess. Like, what an irritation. And when I realized what it was and realized that I had thought how cold that was, it really, it shook me pretty bad. For me, targets, while I'm working them, I'm just collecting data. I'm kind of detached because I'm observing, I'm writing down, I'm making sketches. It doesn't really have an impact. Later on, when I get the feedback, that's when the emotion hits me. It's kind of like a PTSD moment. It's later on after the session is over that it's more emotional.
And when you remote view somebody like that too, you get into their brain. Do you actually see what they see? Is it possible to do that?
I'm trying to remember if I've ever. I don't know if I see what they see. I can feel what they think. I can. What we do is called emulation. And emulation, the theory behind that is like quantum physics. Two particles that are entrained will act the same way. So what I try to do when I go to a target is put enough of my awareness there that I'm emulating the target. So what's happening there is manifesting in my consciousness. So I don't really, I'm trying to think if I've ever seen what they're seeing. No, but I can see what is there. The coolest one I ever did was I was remote viewing somebody, and I knew that I knew that there was a room, and I knew that there was a safe in the floor in the closet. And so I'm sitting there at my desk with a paper and pen, I'm sketching this, and I thought, okay, I need to know what's in the safe. I'm going to look in the safe. So I set my intent. I actually wrote, move inside the safe, closed my eyes, and I knew there was a gun, some gold coins, some bills, $100 bills, and a ledger that was a fake set of books. And this was for a client. There was someone that was ripping off a business, and they wanted to know. So that's the cool thing about remote viewing. It's like, okay, I'm going to go inside the safe and see it. And if you have your wits about you and you're in the right, you're in a good session, you can actually do that.
It seems to me that remote viewing can be used for good, bad, and really evil if somebody wanted to, couldn't they?
Yes, it probably could. I try to work with people that have some ethics and some morals. There's some targets that we won't work. I'm working with an organization right now where the reason we formed the group was to protect remote viewers, to do targets that were ethical, to do targets that wouldn't violate national security or violate someone's privacy or be used for bad. Like, there would be people that would try to task you for their personal gain, and we have it takes a team to actually do remote viewing successfully. One remote viewer, two remote viewers can't do it on their own, because you need someone to select the targets. You need someone to cue the target. That's a whole art in itself. You need analysts. There's a whole team of support to have a successful remote viewing operation.
I didn't know that. I've had Major Ed Dames on quite a few times, and he never explained that. I know he has groups of people, remote viewing, but so in other words, to sit down on your own kitchen table and try to remote view, what's the odds of that working out?
It's not very good. It's not going to work. If you tell me, okay, Dick, I have a target for you, I wouldn't work it, because first of all, the remote viewer has to be blind, ideally double blind. Like when I work a target, I don't know who wants to know it. I don't. If you submitted a target to our organization, it would go through a chain of people to keep me shielded from knowing it was for you. Like if I was working a target for you, I know it would be a UFO target. You'd want to know the last guest you had that saw the saucer. So I need to be totally blind from that. Not anyone can cue a remote viewing target. You have to have as much focus as the targeteer as the remote viewer does, because it has to be totally clean. It has to be done in a sterile environment with absolute focus, and you have to make an absolute connection in intent and in purpose between the target ID and the target. So one or two remote viewers, you need a support team.
Very interesting. Now we got to take a break, Dick, for about almost 5 minutes. And when we come back, let's talk about Mars and the moon. What you saw when you remote viewed those. So we'll be back with Dick, this and a few. So stay tuned. You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio. For more information about our guests, go to our website, nightdreamstalkradio.com. We'll be right back.
Chocolate ice cream on your tight tan face, lying on the hammock and staring into space. Hum a melody, then it's gone without a trace. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Feel the ridges, the valleys, the ridges of your bones. Well, I paint my name on your skinny copper tone, and you cheat on your homework over the phone. Oh, sweet and sad. I didn't cry when I heard the news of your suicide. I just saw you sitting there, sweet and sad. I took the blow and it cast my memory back to playing paper football in the back of class. Driving now just to go and mark the gossips at the mall, and talk of movie stars and losers in the bathroom stall, and frame my names in heart on cracked white tile wall forever and ever. That night, lying back in the bed of a hand-me-down highboy in the holler, rolling round and fooling round and pulling bourbon from the bottle.
Diving into the headlines of the mysterious and unexplained, this is The Unseen News with Guy Ticker, where the extraordinary is just the beginning. Reporting from the newsroom, I'm Guy Ticker. A growing number of experts and insiders are beginning to question, what if artificial intelligence is already making key decisions inside our government? Forget the Hollywood fiction. In the 1983 movie War Games, a Pentagon supercomputer nearly started a nuclear war. But today's AI, it's far more advanced and possibly far more involved. Sources suggest that beyond public knowledge, AI systems may already be shaping public policy, making budget decisions, and even influencing global population strategies without oversight. And here's the chilling part. Some believe AI could be manipulating public perception, spitting out false UFO reports, even fabricated alien abductions as part of psychological operations or distraction campaigns. The government won't tell us the truth about UAPs. So, how do we know who or what is feeding the narrative? At Night Dreams Talk Radio, we ask the hard questions, because someone has to. This is Guy Ticker reporting for the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Time slips. A haunted office building on a haunted street. A haunted coal town. Mysterious black cats. Unexplained light anomalies. UFOs, UAPs, in the air and on the ground. Bridges in liminal spaces. Cryptids, shamans, and a werewolf. Disclosure. You don't need a ranch in Utah. All this and more happens in rural southwestern Pennsylvania. Now available on Amazon from author Kevin Paul. Politics and the Paranormal in Greene County, Pennsylvania. Read this captivating book as soon as you can by author Kevin Paul. The night trembles, the truth screams, and the gatekeeper of the unknown is on the air. This is Night Dreams Talk Radio, and Gary Anderson is on a mission to rip the veil, punch through the lies, and wake you the hell up.
And we're back with Dick. Again, so many people have made all these claims about the moon, Mars. John Lear said, there's an alien base or a couple of them on the moon. How about what is going on when you remote viewed, Mars?
Mars, I've had better sessions than the moon. I've remote viewed Mars, probably 4 or 5 times. And I need to explain something. When I do a remote viewing, I'm double blind, so I don't know what it is, where it is, why I'm doing it. I just find myself getting data. And so if I'm seeing a vibrant civilization, for me, it's current time. It takes a whole lot of work and a certain really complicated protocol to determine the time. Like, was this 1 million years ago on a different planet? So I don't know that at the time. I saw amazing things on Mars. What was most visually stimulating for me was these underground transport systems, these like tubes where they were transporting things like really, really fast, like the super subway system. There's water on Mars. It's not as maybe was a different time, but when I was seeing it, it was a little more vibrant. It was just red dirt.
Well, I got to ask you a question, Dick. When we have the rover and we have all these things on Mars, right, sending us back images and video clips of Mars. It's just like if you went out to the desert anywhere in Nevada or or in Africa or any parts of the world, right? If a lander landed there, then that's what they would think. That's what the whole planet is like. At least that's what a lot of people that see that thinks what it's like. Have you remote viewed the actual Mars from the standpoint? Maybe there is more to Mars than what we're being led to believe.
Oh, there definitely is, and there definitely was in the past. There was a vibrant civilization there. I think one of the most complex things I ever got in a remote viewing session involved the gash on Mars, that big canyon, and the Grand Canyon. So we were looking at those things in a project, and I saw what I described as the keeper of the DNA. Now, this will sound absolutely crazy to you, but it's data that came to me in a remote viewing session. So the concept was that there were these beings that have a library of DNA, so that when they need to seed a planet, they can look at the conditions on the planet and maybe terraform the planet, and then take DNA off the shelf and plant that to create their life forms. And that's a concept that I had remote viewing Mars and the moon. That would be one of the most fantastical, complex things I ever got in remote viewing. Do I think it's true? I don't know. But it's thoughts that I'd never thought I'd think, and it's what I got doing that target. So Mars had a vibrant civilization. The moon, there's a lot going on there. There's structures there. Currently, we think one of our viewers got data on a jump box, like a portal going to Mars. I know I gave a target where I was the tasker. I didn't remote view it. One of our other guys, a guy named Edward Reardon, did this blind target. And remember when Israel sent their lander to Mars about 5 years ago, called the Bereshit? And I was watching that, and the thing was on live TV, and the thing's going to touch down, and all of a sudden just disappeared. I thought, well, that's an interesting target. So I cued it, and I gave it blind to our viewers, Daz Smith and Edward Reardon. And Edward Reardon goes, wow, there's this barren place, and there's this crater, and there's something in the crater that was created by an intelligence, and this thing comes flying over, and it's like, it triggers like a mousetrap. It just all of a sudden takes this thing out. And the idea being that there are places on the moon that are off limits, and if we try to land there, the lander just gets taken out.
Well, again, too, when our astronauts walked on the moon, one famous thing is, look at all the craft over there. Again, I think we've been deceived so much. But I got to ask you a question, too, while I just brought that up. It just bounced in my little brain here. There's a lot of talk out there. We never went to the moon. Have you ever remote viewed that subject? Did we actually go to the moon?
No, I haven't been given that as a target. My understanding, not from remote viewing, but from speaking with people that I am associated with and that I work with, is that we had been to the moon long before the Apollo space program. That the Germans actually had craft and went there. And I haven't verified that, but that's what I've been told. The idea behind that being that the space program is the purpose of it is to roll out technology for the Earth, to roll it out little by little. In the space program, it's a good way to eat up money and roll out technology. That technology is ceded to the human race to upgrade our civilization. And the fake space program is a cover for the real space program. And it's a way to introduce technology and eat money.
So you mentioned, you mentioned,
we may have been to the moon before that.
You mentioned that our space force basically is a cover up for the real force.
Well, I did a target one time that involved a secret space program, and I got some pretty interesting data about an underground place and scientists working on something, and I was told not to publish it, so I didn't publish it, and I won't talk too much about it, but I am pretty sure there. Okay, I'll put it this way.
Yeah.
In 1969, or in the 1950s, they had a tube, and they had combustible chemicals blast out of the end of the tube, and that launched up. If you look at all the technology that is rolled out just from a communication standpoint, computer and other things, why are we still using the same technology of blowing chemicals out the rear end of a tube? And why would the United States, like we didn't have, until Elon Musk came along, when we retired the space shuttle, we didn't have a way to get humans into outer space. We had to rely on the Russians. Do you think the United States of America would not have the capability to go into space? I don't think so. I think there are other means. And I think we're living in a time where this is going to be revealed to us pretty soon. Interesting time to live.
Have you remote viewed disclosure, UAP disclosure, what's going on? Because I'll be honest with you, right now, it's like a carnival. And, it's so frustrating because you got all these people making all these claims. And I have interviewed some of them on my show, and I'll tell you, I don't know if they're telling the truth but here's the point. Somebody who's a whistleblower, they're not whistleblowing really anything. It's like, I know somebody, it knows somebody. Have you remote viewed any of this?
Bob Lazar. But let me talk about disclosure really quickly.
Please.
Disclosure is happening. Disclosure has been happening. Your friend Art Bell was part of disclosure. You have a successful radio program. You're part of disclosure. You're part of bringing this out to humanity. It's coming out little. For those of us who pay attention, who listen to your radio show, who spend any time looking into this, reading books, listening to the real experts, they already know. So disclosure is underway. It needs to be done gradually. They didn't want to dump it on us all at once. Now, in terms of remote viewing disclosure, we were given a blind target about, I think it was 2 years ago. I didn't know who gave it to us. I didn't know what it was. I'm doing the work. And I said, oh, there's this place that's like real secure, and they're bringing something in, but they bring it in at the dark of night when no one can seize it. And it's a very secure location, and they're real concerned with security. And they've got something on a crane. And then there's this military guy that's really mad because the guys that operate the crane don't have the level of clearance that needed to see what they're seeing. And then I saw these scientists, and I knew the scientists were looking at something that was like an energy an engine, some energy source that was very exotic, and they were afraid of it. They were like, what do we do with this thing? Like, how do we turn it on? How could we turn it off? Will this kill us? Will it blow up? How does it work? And they were just scratching their heads and trying to figure this thing out in a secure location. And then I saw a saucer, either on a crane or up on blocks or something, in a big warehouse with the lighting was fluorescent lighting and very secure. One of the other viewers saw a place in a mountain with a hidden door. Anyway, the target was Bob Lazar, and we pretty much, on a double-blind remote viewing, verified Bob Lazar's story, and I believe it. We did a segment on that with Richard Dolan. I'm sure you know him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Richard Dolan was quite impressed with our work. So that would be the most direct contact I've had with a disclosure target. We did really well on the Bob Lazar one. That was really interesting.
Do you think that the population could, if they came out tomorrow and said, hey, look, we've been lying to you since the 40s, and, we are being visited, there is abductions going on, and we can't stop it. I mean, how do you think the population could handle that?
You think they're going to admit the abductions? I don't know. I think they're going to. I think the way it's rolling out is they're going to say, well, we have some craft, and yeah, we have some biological entities that we've studied, and yeah, we're not alone. And I think it's the problem with that is like what you're talking about is catastrophic disclosure all at once. Or what I think is happening is it's most people, if you told them they have ET bodies, they go, well, I heard about that. I saw that on TV. I think a certain segment of the population would go, yeah, I knew that. That's really cool. I think a lot of the population would go, I saw, they just go and see the next TikTok scroll. And I think part of the population would probably be pretty freaked out. So,
well, I've had a lot of ufologists on the show tell me, people wouldn't panic if they really came out and told the truth. I still think if you look how the world is today, if they came out, Dick, tomorrow, pretend you're back on as a news anchor and you are behind the camera and you tell the population, we are being visited by ETs and we have no way to stop it. They are here. What do you think would happen?
It would certainly be the biggest news story.
Yeah, it would.
That brings to mind, you said, if I went on the air and said we're being visited, I come from an era where reporters only reported through attribution. So reporters would say a government official, naming the official, says we're being visited. So you would let them say it. Today, the way it's not news reporting. It's these these people go on I'm not going to name names, but all the networks, and they just give their opinions and conjecture and political stances. It's not the same as it was when I was a reporter. Well, I covered presidents. I was in the room with George W. Bush, and I covered Obama getting off Air Force One a number of times. And I've interviewed governors and senators and representatives, city council members, neighborhood board, years and years now. None of them ever knew my political views, not from talking to me, not from my reporting. I let them say what they wanted to say, and I found someone who disagreed with them, and I let that person say what they wanted to say, and I did it as objectively as possible. That's not done anymore. We're in a whole new media climate, and for me, it's sad. I'm almost ashamed to say I was a journalist, a TV reporter.
Well, it has really changed. If you even go back about the death of Marilyn Monroe or JFK or Bobby Kennedy or, even Clinton, they didn't come out like they do now. And what they do is a lot of slander. I mean, the stuff they say it shocks me. It's not news. It's like gossip thrown as news.
Yep.
And you're not getting, I'll be honest with you, news, if you remember Walter God, I can't even think of his last name.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he delivered the news in such a way that it was compelling. Nowadays, it's garbage. I'll be honest with you. I am so frustrated with TikTok. I watch it for about 5 minutes and I get frustrated because you got all these people, right, pretending to be news people on TikTok and on YouTube. And what they're doing is spreading nothing but garbage. And if people believe it, that does more damage.
It's dumbing down the population. It's being done on purpose, Gary. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's really scary. Now, the pyramids. I have always had my, let me say mine, and then you can, I want to hear your view because you remote viewed it. But I always wondered how the technology could have been so far advanced. And I have a feeling, from all the research I've done through the years, I think this planet has been rebooted maybe once or twice, and we lost a lot of technology. Now,
my understanding.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Gary. My understanding, not through remote viewing, but through the people that I work with, is that there have been at least 6 civilizations on the planet, very advanced, and the pyramids are part of that. So, yeah.
And we did something wrong, and each civilization dropped away.
Yep. It gets to a certain level where they discover a technology that is too advanced for mere humans. Like, who was it? There was one famous UFO. I don't want to steal the line because someone else, I think it might have been Jim Marrs, said, "Oh, the children have found the matches." So I think when you get to the Tesla free energy, unlimited energy portion of the technology, it might be time for a reboot. So anyway, back to the pyramids.
Yeah.
I know you want to know about the pyramids.
I want to know about the pyramids.
I did a couple remote viewings on it, again, double blind, and a project I did for Courtney Brown. I know you know Courtney Brown. This was about 12 years ago. Daz Smith, another good remote viewer, was describing huge, blocky, heavy block things. These huge, heavy blocks that were floating. And they were floating because of some, he called it buffering energy. And the target tasking was, how did they build it? How did they move the stones? So his data was these huge blocks were made weightless. And there was some way to just make them like float and then put them in place. I got data on the mining activity where it was a pretty brutal mining quarrying operation with like slaves mining the rocks. And then the most spectacular pyramid data I got was I saw the pyramid when it wasn't just a pile of stones. It was an energy device. So it was sparkly, smooth, had a very whitish, it had an outer shell that was not just bare stones. So it was a very well finished structure with incredible energy, and it reminded me of a Grateful Dead concert, like the lights flashing and everything, the energy of something like that. And then I got data about when I remote viewed the pyramids, I saw them from afar. I didn't see them up close, and I saw them in relation to grid lines, energy grids. So I think the purpose of the pyramids was something to do with energy and grid lines.
Some people claim that it was a water pump, but I don't buy that. And know what I find so unique too, Dick, is why are there pyramids all over the world? And do they tie together? Have you done any remote viewing on that?
Yeah, we've done. Okay, I want to be careful here because I don't want to come on your program, Gary, and claim to be this omniscient expert on all these topics. I can only talk about brief moments that we've gleaned and glimpsed with remote viewing. So we've done Göbekli Tepe. We've done the pyramids, the Mayan. And what the data seems to tie together and indicate is that, yeah, there was a civilization, that they had higher technology, that there is a grid line of energy and they knew how to use it. So that's just glimpses. I'm not an expert, so I don't want to claim to be some omniscient, the ancient civilization expert. It's just a few targets that we've done, and this is what we've glimpsed.
That is very interesting. What I'm really concerned and scared about is AI, artificial intelligence. I was reading in a science journal just a few days ago, the godfather of AI walked away from Google. He's 77 years old. And he said, I'm glad I'm 77 years old, because AI is going to be, the extinction of mankind. And it might only be a ways away, like 10 years from now. Have you done any remote viewing on AI?
Yes, that's one of the things, and I'll give a little plug. Our private site is futureforecastinggroup.com, and we call it future forecasting because we look at trends and developments that will be affecting mankind in the future. What we're doing is we're reading the fabric of the future using remote viewing, and we've been looking at the energy grid. That was a project we just did several months ago. The energy grid post 2030 is going to be something really interesting, and it's going to, what we got was a melding of, let me remember this. I don't know. I'm just going from memory here. A melding of new energy, quantum computing, and artificial intelligence. So this is all going to meld into a new system. We're in the transition to a new financial system. We're in the transition to a new administrative system of the planet Earth. At the beginning of the program you were talking about, they're doing away with pennies and the old coins. They're going to do away with paper money. I remote viewed people in the future, and they look back at us and they think we're crazy. Like, you people used to print up pieces of paper and put them in trucks, big heavy armored trucks, and stack these pieces of paper in a machine. And you would put a piece of plastic in the machine and pieces of paper would come out. And that was the most, you used that as money, you were crazy. And the people in the future look back at us and say, you people sat in these big, heavy vehicles that burned gasoline, and you would have one or two people in a vehicle, and you would sit endlessly in traffic on freeways to get around. What were you thinking? These people were crazy. So yeah, we do look at the future, and we are going into a time when everything is going to be tokenized, and it is going to have a digital certificate. All transactions involving humanity and involving commerce will be done on the blockchain with a tokenized certificate. And it's some people think it's a bleak future, but it's coming, and that's where they're taking us.
How about getting chipped? Where when they get away with paper going to digital, I mean, they're talking about chipping people. So you just go up to whatever you're getting, you put your hand out there, and you pay for it.
Well, you may not need to be chipped. Have you traveled recently internationally?
No, not in the last 5 years.
Okay, I just went to Korea with my wife. My wife's Korean, and I went on an Alaskan cruise 2 weeks ago. When you travel now, when you get to Korea, like when I was getting on the boat, I went on a nice cruise, and I checked in the night before, and it said, okay, scan your passport. So I scanned my passport, and I uploaded it. And then it said, take a selfie, position your iPhone, take a picture of your face. So when I went to get on the ship, you just walked in and stood in front of a camera, and it verified you by your facial recognition. This is already a reality. You already have a digital ID. If you're doing any transactions involving cryptocurrency, the funny thing about cryptocurrencies is the components
Dick,
of crypto.
We need to take about a 2-minute break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about that. We'll be back with Dick right after this break. Again, for more information about our guests, just go to our website, nightdreamstalkradio.com.
Take a journey of adventure and discovery for the enigmatic giants of the forests. Read On the Trail of Bigfoot by Mike Dupler. The author himself describes it this way. Having found possible Sasquatch evidence, namely trees driven into the ground upside down, thought to be territory markers, led me to investigate this creature in my native Ohio. Several years and many forays into Bigfoot territory, I have found incredible evidence, which inspired my book, On the Trail of Bigfoot. Bigfoot is alive and has many fantastic abilities. The evidence is out there for all to see, but you need to know what to look for. My book will inspire those who have answered the call to seek this elusive creature, the Bigfoot. The truth is out there. Read On the Trail of Bigfoot by Mike Dupler. Available now at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and IndieBound.org.
Hey, this is April, the Psychic Housewife of New Jersey. Listen to Night Dreams Talk Radio with Gary Anderson.
You're listening to my friend Gary Anderson on Night Dreams Talk Radio, the best in paranormal radio.
Turn the dial. Try to run. You can't unhear what's coming. From the edge of the known to the depths of the weird. Night Dreams Talk Radio is unleashed. And Gary Anderson is driving it straight into your subconscious.
And we're back with Dick. Again, AI, I'm really worried, about being chipped, this, that. And here's another thing, too. This person, Godfather AI, like I mentioned, he said that it's going to be an extinction of mankind. The movie, they made War Games back in back moons ago. I chuckled when I first saw that years ago. But now I'm really concerned because are our governments really making a lot of the decisions we think that are being made? And here's another thing, Dick. You go into the hospital, right? Now, this is what my heart doctor said when I had my 2 heart attacks and died twice, by the way. He said what they do is they basically get a hold of the insurance company, put all the information of the patient in, and then the insurance company basically says what they'll pay, not pay for. Basically, how can I say it? Making a decision of life and death. This is getting scary.
What frightens me is they're going to have all your data in, and AI will look at it and go, well, Gary's due for a heart attack. We can't cover him, or he won't be allowed to do this, or they'll say, Gary, you have a heart attack coming, so your consumption of red meat is curtailed. When we get to a point where everything is on the blockchain, it's going to be a much different. Before we went to the break, I was saying that the cryptocurrency proponent, and I'm a proponent of cryptocurrency, so keep that in mind. I'll confess to that. But the proponents, the way it was rolled out was, hey, we've got this new form of money that's going to unseat the bankers, right? We're gonna take the money away from the bankers and we're going to give it to the people to have freedom. Like Bitcoin, you can use it peer to peer. The problem is, it's all recorded on the blockchain. There is no privacy whatsoever with it. And in order to use Bitcoin and use any cryptocurrencies, if you probably haven't, but if you're going to buy cryptocurrency today, I said, okay, go to a broker to put some of your money in cryptocurrency. They're going to demand that you give proof, a video of you saying, I'm Gary Anderson. I'm going to make this crypto payment today, and you've got to upload your driver's license, facial recognition. You're under international law. So those who thought Bitcoin's going to be our freedom, we're going to get rid of the evil bankers, that's not true. That's not true. But it is the future.
Yeah, but now AI can actually generate people. I mean, there was a murder case like now 2 years ago in Seattle, where one of the people, went through and cleaned up the video, because they had a video of the guy murdering somebody. Mm-hmm. And he cleaned it up. And then the judge ruled, well, you know what? We can't take that evidence. The guy walked away. He committed a murder. He wasn't convicted. He was mistrial. He was set free because the guy cleaned up the video by using AI.
Okay. Someone could download this broadcast that we're doing right now. They could download the video from YouTube and sample your voice and my voice, sample your video and my video, and make an entire show that would be completely convincing of you talking to me, and you would say, UFOs are not real, I was making it all up, it's all a phony, and I would be saying remote viewing, I never really remote view. It could be completely 180 degrees and it would be convincing. So how do you know if what you're getting is true in the future? And this is coming, it's probably here already. What I'm worried about is the free AI that they give us now. Like, I use AI, and it just blows my mind. If I need a graphic for my, I made one for my YouTube video yesterday. I just typed in a command, make this, it made an image for me in 4 seconds. What does the government, what's the AI that we're not allowed to use? What do they have if they're giving us the public version? Getting back to the fake videos, in the future, I've already copyrighted and trademarked my name and image and voice, and you should probably do that too. And in the future, you will have a blockchain that will be, the Night Dreams radio show will be on this blockchain, and that's the only place that the legitimate, real, authorized one. Anything else is considered a counterfeit. So that's the advantage of blockchain. But AI is I'm not afraid of AI as much as I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to keep up with it, like learn it. Because I learned technology pretty well, but I'm in my 70s, and it's just like, how do you keep up with this?
It's hard, because you're a long-time broadcaster. I am too. I set up this studio, and to keep up with the technology moving, and I use AI for a lot for the show, for my commercial. Yeah. Everything is generated AI, even my scripts for the show. I mean, it's scary. Now, hey, Dick, we got a caller. Let's take a caller and see what.
Oh, great. Yeah. I love that. I love callers, Gary.
Okay.
So let's do it.
Okay, who do we have out there?
Hello, this is Mazat Running Deer, indigenous to the Americas, which we call Turtle Island Isha, Sri Lanka in our native language. Hello, Gary. A quick question. I wanted to ask your guest. I practice Temeshkali, which is a sweat lodge, the Red Roads, and I wanted to know more. What we use is we seek a vision, right? We fast, and it can be a day, 4 days, 7 days, no food, no water. And when you faint, you fall, and you have a vision. So I wanted to connect with the subject of what we're talking about, or what you guys are mentioning, about the connected to the remote viewing. I want to know if that's connected to a remote viewing, our visions in a sweat lodge. What are your thoughts? I'm just kind of curious.
Absolutely. Remote viewing is billed as being something that the U.S. military developed in the 1970s. Not true. Human beings have been remote viewing throughout history, and Native people like yourself have used different methods to do it. And what you're doing in a sweat lodge, I would love to meet you and learn from you and try to do that. But it is a natural communication skill, and various seers, mystics, psychics, shaman, people like yourself have embraced and used this skill throughout history. So yes, it comes from the same place. It is the same, essentially the same thing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that.
I would love to meet you. I've talked to Native Hawaiians who basically sit down and create a duplicate of their own consciousness. They create another body, another consciousness, and then they send it to where they want to see. My mentor, the man that taught me remote viewing, he was in the Green Berets, and they were doing an operation in South America where they needed 2 nights of rain to do something undercover, and so they marched through the jungle for like a day and a half to find a shaman or medicine man. And they met this guy and paid him, and the guy said, "You'll get 2 nights of rain, 30 days from now." And they did. So this is a skill that's been throughout humanity, and I respect it.
Oh, that means yes in our Euro-Aztec linguistics. I mean, that's from the Southwest originally down to, you mentioned the jungles, and it reminded me of Central America. When we lived there, we lived in the jungles, and I spoke to this Mayan elder that was barefooted and had straight long hair, and we talked about the moon and the pyramids. You guys call them pyramids, but we call them Teocalli, which means house of energies, like Kivos, like Hopi in Pueblo, New Mexico. But thank you so much. I don't want to take so much time for having me and for answering our phone call and connecting and answering.
I'd love to talk to you at length sometime. I was down in Belize for a while and was near the structures there, and that is a high energy place. That place almost knocked me off I was doing remote viewings down there. It was almost too much energy for me. So these are sacred places. They're very high energy places you're speaking of. Nice to talk with you. Thank you.
Yeah, caller, what you can do is just go to nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com. Send me an email and I'll connect you with Dick.
Okay, will do. Thank you so much. And everybody listening, remember Chuck Moll. That's what Gary's now talking about, and myself too. And Chuck Moll had the ability to have like this a remote viewing or a vision. Same thing. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Same thing. That was a good call.
Yeah. Again, too, ancient civilizations, they had I think the capability to actually remote view without knowing they're remote viewing. I think we have lost that. I think the remote viewers have learned how to remote view, but I think at one point all humans maybe had that capability. What do you think?
Yes, and they had it in ancient times more because they weren't bombarded by the. My theory on this, Gary, is that consciousness is a dimension. All right. Consciousness, all information is in a dimension, and consciousness is not necessarily generated by our brain. I think our brain is more of a filter. So as we come here and we're incarnated in these bodies to have this experience, our consciousness is limited by our brain to the 5 physical senses. We see things, we hear things, we smell things. That's to keep us focused on the here and now. But we have a part of our being that is in this greater consciousness field where all information leaks in. So the gentleman who just called us can go into a sweat lodge and go into a state where their consciousness embraces that greater consciousness field. Psychics are naturally wired so that they're getting the flow of the consciousness. Remote viewers just use a disciplined, structured approach to do the same thing.
Okay, we got another caller. Caller, go ahead.
This is Art.
Hi, Art. How are you doing on a Friday?
Okay. Oh, doing great. We're going to party tonight. Yeah, but my question is, when some of us have, like, we go outside and we look up in the air and then we feel something's out there, and then an orb or a ship or something pops out, and it seems to react to your when you get contact with them, you can almost feel a connection, but no talking, just a connection that they see you, they knew you were there, like it was planned. If you have many experiences with this, it's almost like, are you following me? Are you watching me? Is there some sort of, like, in the remote viewing of anything with the mind, and everybody uses the word thought. I love it. So that really tips me off. Are we having, like, how does it work between some extraterrestrial or some being, angelical, whatever, contacting you without voicing you, but knowing that you get the feeling that you know that there's some kind of communication without a communication? We can understand that. And I'll take that off the air.
Okay, thanks, Art.
Thank you.
Good question. We've actually discussed this. I work with a team of remote viewers. We've got Daz Smith in the UK, and he'd be a great guest for you, Gary, because he's an expert in UFOs and really good remote viewer. So we've got Daz Smith there. We got a guy up in Canada. We got a guy in Austin, Texas. We have people around the world, and we're all pretty skilled remote viewers. And we've actually toyed with the idea of, could we, I don't want to call it a seance, but could we all get into our state and try to call down, like, get together, and could we bring in a craft or bring in some ET? We thought, like, that would be an interesting experiment. Should we try that? We haven't done it, but we've toyed with the idea.
Well, if you do, let me know. You know what? We got another caller. Who do we have? Do we have a caller out there?
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. You have a question for Dick.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Dick. Hi, Gary. Just have a question about whether Sasquatch has ever been remote viewed, and what their origin is.
I have when I show my portfolio of remote viewing, the famous picture of there's that one shaky video of the guy up in the Northwest that got the video clip of the Sasquatch. I was given that, and I drew that exactly. I saw that. And then I drew kind of a shadowy apparition. I said, this is like an apparition. This is like what was my description? It was interdimensional being. And I drew that thing exactly, and I never knew in the session that it was Bigfoot. I sent in my work, and I had the woods, and I wish I could show you the picture. I'll post it somewhere. Email Gary, and I'll send you the shot of it. At the end of the session, I was doing my session, and we hadn't been given feedback, and I was speaking with someone of knowledge of the target, and I said, God, you know what? I wonder if that was Bigfoot. And the person said, oh, Dick, you can't do any more work on the target, because I had named it, and it broke the protocol. It broke the chain of custody. So yes, I remote viewed Bigfoot. I drew it exactly. I thought it was an apparition. I thought it was maybe interdimensional, and that's as much as I got.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people have seen like orbs around Bigfoot, and they seem to can phase in like that. So that's possible. That could be
I think in my
interdimensional.
remote viewing, I did have some orb data. But what you have to understand is, and I'll make this point again. I've made it a couple times during this show. When I'm remote viewing, I'm in a dark room alone. I don't know what the target is. I get this brief vision and I sketch it, and then I go try to understand it. And so it doesn't make me all knowledgeable about what Bigfoot is. It's just like, wow, this was an apparition. This was this big thing in the woods. And that's a pretty good remote viewing target contact. Remote viewing is kind of limited about how much data you can really bring back if you want to be honest about it.
Yeah, a lot of people
good question.
have also said that they use mind speak, that they are telepathic. I think there's been several instances of that as well.
Caller, good question.
Yeah. I think we're all telepathic. We just don't know it. You just don't listen. Your subconscious is constantly trying to talk to you. It's constantly giving you messages, and you don't listen. You have little fleeting thoughts. If everybody wrote down every thought that they had in a day and kept a journal, and then looked back, you'd know that your mind was giving you future events, giving you insights into things.
I don't know, though. Here's the thing. Back in the early 2000s, Dick, me and a friend, a medical doctor, we were up in the Canadian Rockies at an old Japanese internment camp, and we actually encountered a Bigfoot, a hairy man, whatever you want to call it. And it actually chased us back about 2 miles through the woods, back to the car, and did a lot of damage to the car. And I didn't get any telepathic. I didn't get any communications. But here's the thing. When you're going from a human to whatever a Bigfoot is, it's like, how could you actually interpret their thoughts? Because their thought pattern is completely different than how humans think and rationalize. It's like dogs can learn, so many words and learn commands and learn by your eyes and how you move around a certain amount of thing. But I think some people claim that they can actually telecommunicate with, the Bigfoot. I don't know if can they?
Yeah. How would you know? I remote viewed a rabbit one time. This was a training target.
A rabbit?
And I'm working a target. This was a training target. And I drew, like a structure, and I drew grass and trees, and then I got this idea of freedom, like this exhilarating freedom, this feeling of just like, run, I'm free, like, it feels so good to just be outside. And the target was somebody's pet rabbit got loose. And it was a picture of a rabbit running away from its cage. And I had felt the feeling of getting out of the cage. I remote viewed a pretty picture that had a bumblebee in it, or a honeybee. And my God, the feeling that honeybees have for pollen, they just love pollen. They love the smell of it. They love the feel of it. They just want to get near pollen. They want to just bathe in it. In that, I didn't know what it was, but it gets back to target emulation. You emulate the target, so you're feeling what the person or the being or the animal at the target feels. And there are places with sight memory too.
Wow.
Yeah.
But again, maybe we look at animals and different species and not realize that they're way more intelligent than we give them credit for. Could you imagine remote viewing a cattle or a pig going to slaughter? What their thoughts would be?
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to remote view that.
No, I wouldn't.
The fear of what they go through.
Yeah.
So, what do you think the future is of remote viewing? I mean, is it growing huge amount, or is it staying pretty stable?
It's growing in popularity, but I don't want to be too critical, but there are a lot of people on Reddit and a lot of these social media forums that take a class in remote viewing, like they go take a 1-week class, and then they consider themselves experts, and they go on and then they teach a class, and then they say, well, this is a natural skill. You don't really need to go through all the hard work. You can just sit down and wing it. You can just be there and just be psychic. There's one form, they call it cowboy remote viewing. Like, you don't need to learn anything. The structure that I learned takes months just to learn the protocol of how to do the 18 pages. I studied it for 18 years. I'm still studying it. I still am in communication with my teacher and talking theoretical. I meet with him weekly. So remote viewing is having a resurgence, but there are too many people that claim they can do it and claim that you don't need the rigor, the protocol, the structure. It's like somebody gets a piano and they just bang anything out and I can play piano. No, you need to practice scales. You need to learn music theory, and you need to do it right. So,
well, you have to hone up your abilities. I mean, if somebody just wings it, as you say, cowboy style, I mean, then their accuracy could be like not very accurate. And
their work doesn't impress me. We have, our organization was put together to assemble really credible remote viewers and do credible work under a good protocol. We show all our raw work. Good, bad, or the ugly. We give a briefing every week. We do a target, and then we present our data, all of it, without knowing what the target is, and then they reveal the target to us. So some weeks we look pretty silly. Some weeks we look pretty amazing. When you do it week in and week out with a team of good viewers, with a good support staff, you can do pretty amazing things. And that's what we're doing at Future Forecasting. We are the only, I think we are, and I know we're the most successful business. We pay remote viewers. We do it professionally. And we pay them a good salary, and they do good work, and we publish it. So I'm remote viewing is the upgrade of the human consciousness. It's the upgrade of the human species.
Have you remote viewed our future?
Well, by our future, it was the way to do that is to look at very specific, like we've remote viewed the energy grid. We remote viewed the future of gold. We remote viewed a chip, a quantum chip that Microsoft came out with that they say creates a new form of matter, a new state of matter, like not a plasma, not a solid, not a gas. So you can't just give a broad, like, what is our future? You need to have a specific tasking. And that comes back to the design. You need someone to design targets well, and you need targeteers that can do it in a coherent way. And that's why the team is necessary.
Well, does
But our future, I'll give you the elevator version.
I just want to know if we got a future for the next 20 years at least.
We do, but it's going to be a lot different. We're going to go through a lot of hardships. The administration of humanity, nation states are going to fall away. It's going to be governed by blockchain, by artificial intelligence, by consensus, quantum computing. It's going to be an amazing future, but it's going to take some getting used to, and we're going to go through some hardships. One of the things we look at is natural disasters and geophysical. There's going to be earthquakes. There's going to be tsunamis. There's going to be more fires. There's going to be volcanoes. All of that. We're going through some turbulent times, but we're going to come out of it with more, I think, open interaction with ET, amazing technology. It's going to be an incredible world.
Now, have you remote viewed any evil ETs?
Evil ETs.
Well, yeah, the reason why I say that, so many people say that, that ETs would never hurt mankind. They're here to help mankind, but they haven't helped us, at least that I'm aware of. I mean, but is there evil ones out here that would love to see us blow up our planet?
Okay. Again, with the caveat that ET targets are only 2% maybe of the remote views. I did one for Courtney Brown that was Area 51. And I was underground in Area 51 in this long corridor, and I came around a corner, and there was this big, I would describe it as a reptilian, and it scared the crap out of me. It was like, I got a glimpse of it for like 4 seconds, and it wasn't friendly. It wasn't like the loving, we're here to help you ET. It was quite menacing. So yeah, but that was 4 seconds. But my impression of the thing was, whew, you don't want to mess with that guy.
Is that the type of one, if you invited them over for dinner, they might use you the dinner?
Gary, it's like above is like below. The hierarchy, I think, and this is not from direct remote viewing, but it's from talks with people who know. There are different species, there are different hierarchies, there are different control structures on Earth, in the solar system, in this quadrant of the galaxy. So there are what you would call good ETs, there are what you would call bad ETs. Somebody made this place, somebody put us here for a purpose. This place didn't, this didn't just ball of Earth just congeal out of space dust, and then there was primordial ooze, and then a one-celled organism developed into human beings. No, somebody made this place and made us and runs it. I'm convinced of that.
How about, have you, there is a famous remote viewer that remote viewed God. Have you ever tried remote viewing God or Jesus or anything like that?
I remote viewed I've seen a couple entities that it was unsettling. I remote viewed the coronation of King Charles, the secret coronation. There's the public coronation, and then there was a ceremony where the actual power, there's an actual transfer of power, an energetic power, and I remote viewed that, and I did it on camera. I was going into altered state remote view, and I'd done like 4 or 5 paper sessions, and I had really good target contact about the oil that they put on them and the wine. That there's this whole ceremony, and I was really on target. And I felt I was on target, so I said, I'm going to go really deep on this one. I put a video camera on me, and I went into altered state, and you see me like kind of sleeping, and then I'm kind of muttering, and then I start describing this thing, and this energy took over me, and I actually almost levitated off the bed, and I like, it was like The Exorcist. I was like, ah, and it was so startling and so powerful. We didn't publish that. That's a hidden. That's one I might put put in a file, and when I die, I'll put that one out. Like, okay, here's one I never showed you, but it was beyond intense. But what happened is there's this beam of light that comes through a certain chamber that they have at a certain time, at a certain place where the energy aligns, and it hits, and it was, yeah, I've experienced some amazing things. There are beings and consciousnesses that are so powerful and so intense that if you resonate with them, it's a little it's quite unsettling. Now I'm a mainstream news guy. I don't want to sound like a crazy guy, but I've had some interesting experiences here. It's true.
Wow. Now, do you have a website you can share or anything like that for the listeners?
I have a YouTube channel, which is Future Forecasting Group. 3 words, Future Forecasting Group. And that you can see me doing YouTube where I talk about cryptos, I talk about remote viewing. I just did a segment where I said, what did I say? The future is going to be amazing. Why this is such an interesting place to live. Our main website is futureforecastinggroup.com. And that's a paid site. You need to get a membership. What I would advise people to, I don't want to give too much of an advertisement. If you go to futureforecastinggroup.com and get the visionary membership, it's like $40 or something. Get that and just binge watch for 1 month. Buy a 1-month membership and go see our remote viewing. We have a thing called Founders Conversations, where we have someone who is so knowledgeable and so well connected that he will not allow his voice to be in a public setting, but we do interviews with him, and we have really interesting content. We do remote viewing projects 1 a week with top remote viewers, and we forecast cryptocurrencies too.
Yeah. Yeah, that, again, I hate to say it, that is going to be our future very shortly, a cashless society. And that's going to be interesting when that happens. Well, Dick, I want to thank you.
Real quickly.
Yeah.
This is going to be the greatest wealth transfer in the history of humanity. All the money is going to, the amount of money that's going to flow in, and this is not financial advice, but I know financial advisors, and there are 300,000 financial advisors in the U.S. that are certified financial advisors. I'm not one of them, so don't take any advice financially from me. They are not allowed if they work for Charles Schwab or Ameriprise or T. Rowe Price or Voya, they're not allowed to counsel people about cryptocurrencies. And the amount of money that's going to flow into cryptocurrencies is going to be staggering in the next few years. It's just getting started. So that's one of the things we forecast at our site. And people our age, it's hard to grasp, and it's, young people, they don't use cash. People in China don't use cash. I was in Korea, they're all digital. So it's coming.
Well, again, too, you mentioned Korea and all that. In China, their AI is so advanced that if you are, because they got cameras everywhere in their main cities, and they can identify somebody in a matter of seconds. It's either they don't need their face anymore. It's the movement, the way they walk. That's how far AI is getting, and that's why I'm really concerned about the future of mankind. And we're losing everything.
On one hand, it will curb, Gary, it will curb crime, because you're not going to be able to go out and commit a crime. You'll be caught right away. But it will force compliance. If you're not compliant with who's ever running the show, they'll turn you off, and that's really scary. One of the things we see in our remote viewing is something called access management, where depending on your standing in the new civilization, you will be allowed access to certain places. Like if you can have a token and you're allowed to travel, you won't need a passport or an ID. Your face will be recognized, and the door will open. You'll be able to get on a plane and you'll go somewhere. There will be. I did a remote viewing where I did see a hierarchy of low-level people that are. It was a really detailed. It was low-level people have very little access, and they just work, and they have no technology, very little limited technology. There's another middle class of people that had more technology, more access, a more comfortable life, and then there was a higher tier. And the highest tier, they could go anywhere in nature. They were allowed total immersive. I don't want to say, not artificial intelligence, virtual reality. Like they get a virtual reality experience. So depending on the tier, the technology and the access to physical places is going to be stunning. You can see them already closing off. They're making the 15-minute cities. They're, try to go to a national park. It's coming fast, Gary. It's coming fast.
Well, I'm at the age where I don't think I'm gonna see it, but I can tell you it's coming faster than people realize. One thing I remember back on a Twilight Zone series where these, bank robbers go and steal a ton of gold and they put it in a cave. And then, one of them dies and then the other one kills the other one. And this one guy has some gold and he's walking down an old road and like a hover car goes and they see this guy off the side of the road and they went to help him. And they had a backpack and they looked at his backpack and it was full of gold. And the lady says to the guy, "What's that?" He says, "That's gold." "Well, what's gold?" "Well, they used to use that as money back at a certain time." Do you see the future of that too? Have you remote viewed where precious metals are going to be worthless?
Not so much remote viewing, but talking with the people that I work with. Gold and silver were used as money. Silver was the monetary basis. It was the reserve currency of the world back in the 1700s. The ships from Spain and Portugal would sail around the world and they would trade goods and they bring back silver. They paid for it with silver. We're going to a system where people are not going to lug silver and gold around. You're not going to go on Amazon and buy something and pay with silver and gold. It's going to be digital. I think that they will get. One thing you haven't heard about lately is nanotechnology. It used to be the hot thing about 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Nobody's talking about nanotechnology because I think it's gone underground. I think they will eventually be able to manipulate atomic structure so they could just make gold and it won't be as valuable. They may already be able to do that.
I read a science journal, they actually can make gold right now. And that is really interesting too, but
that's in a science journal. I hadn't.
Yeah, I just read it. Yeah, I just read it here about a week or two ago. Just by certain chemicals being mixed together, it creates a gold. So I don't know. That's interesting too.
Well, it's the future is going to be digital, and what I was told by the person that helped me form the company that I'm doing. I was told in 2017, get one Bitcoin for me, one for my wife, and one to play with, and it would be generational wealth. And so I learned about it, and I invested there was a day when I took my 401k out, my heart was beating like this. I was so scared, and I invested a lot of money based on my remote viewing and my talk with my mentor. And I put it all into Bitcoin when it was $5,000, $10,000. It's 107 now.
Yeah, but when Bitcoin first started out, my late son, who died in 2020, he was really into that. And going back for, a couple of years before that, yeah. He was calling, he was mining, whatever that is. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He was creating the Bitcoin.
Yeah, and he had a bunch of Bitcoins when he died. Unfortunately, his computer, somebody stole it when he died. He had probably today's worth millions of dollars it would be worth millions of dollars. And I remember him when he was getting them. I said, "Why are you doing that? It's not going to be worth anything."
Did he leave notebooks or papers?
No. No. I wish he would have.
I was going to say that I could help you. I know someone that I had a friend who was a remote viewer, a guy named Kahu Dave. He was a very spiritual native Hawaiian, really gifted psychic. And he was such a beautiful person. Somebody that you'd sit next to and you'd just get like a warm, wonderful feeling. Beautiful guy. And his wife called me about 2 months ago and said, "Dave passed away." I thought, "Oh, no." And she said, he had some Bitcoin. He had some cryptos. And so I told her, I got kind of quiet and I said, he has a notebook, and there's a list of words in the notebook. Go on his computer, and you will see an icon that says Exodus. And when you go and enter those words, you'll get his cryptos. And she did it. She got them. So she got his code.
Interesting.
So yeah, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry your son passed away, and I'm sorry he was very smart to be mining Bitcoin, and that probably is locked away somewhere on that computer. Do you have the computer?
No, somebody stole it. When he died, they went into where he was living and they stole his computer and some other stuff. And, you know, again, he had a lot of them. That's what shocked me. And again,
what year was he doing that? Was that like 2013, 2012?
Yeah, right around there. Yeah, when it first started hitting. And I remember, you know, in his bedroom, he had like 5 or 6 computers running. And it's just, you know, and he was obsessed with it. And I kept saying to him, it's not worth anything. And he was excited. Well, I made this amount of money today. I made, you know, and I just kind of blew it off. If I had it over again, I would have invested in it myself.
Well, he probably had maybe a couple of dozen Bitcoin. I would think if he was mining, he may have had a couple hundred. And do you know what that's worth today? That would be millions. I'm sure that's probably worth millions. But
yeah,
that's the woulda, coulda, shoulda. It's still, there are still cryptocurrencies, and that's what we talk about at our site. Again, not financial advice, man. Don't do anything. I'm a retired newsman, and people may think I'm crazy because I remote view. So don't do anything financially based on anything I would say. But there are cryptocurrencies that are, there's something, Gary, called ISO 222, which is the new framework for the digital financial system. And there's a few tokens that are like 10 cents, 20 cents, $2.20. And you could put a little money into those and maybe make some money. But I don't want to be giving financial advice on your show, so I'll leave it at that.
Well, you know, my other son, that's not to keep going on it, back here 2 years ago, he was buying whatever coins they were. Again, I wasn't paying attention. And he was buying them for like 3 cents, 5 cents, 6 cents. And then he came up to me and he goes, "Hey, Dad, I got a couple $1,000." I go, "What?" I cashed them out.
He should have kept some. Well,
yeah,
were they trying to tell you, "Hey, Dad, you need to get some of this"?
I should have. Any tips for anybody out there that is wanting to remote view, where they should go for learning to remote view, books or anything to read to find out if that's really a good move for them?
I would read books by Joe McMoneagle. I would say of all the remote viewers that came out of the military program, I have the most respect for Joe McMoneagle. I also really like Lynn Buchanan. He has good books. I think Joe teaches at the Institute, the Monroe Institute in Virginia. I know Lynn Buchanan teaches classes. He has a place down in New Mexico. Our site, futureforecasters.com, we do training, and we have a class that's going to be starting up in the fall. I think we've trained a couple hundred viewers. We have a secret group called Enigma Working Group, where we have a dozen good viewers that are now doing projects. So my instructor, Glenn Wheaton, never did it for money. He taught me for 20 years, never accepted a dime. He said, "No, I won't have money involved with it." And he just wanted to pass along the knowledge, and I'm trying to do the same.
Now, law enforcement, I've had remote viewers on through the years that, you know, look for missing persons and stuff like that. How does law enforcement treat remote viewers?
Remote viewers should never, ever contact law enforcement, should never, ever, ever contact the family of a victim. That is bad news. Don't ever do that if you're a remote viewer. We have had we knew a private investigator who knew my instructor from military and knew that he was legitimate. So the private investigator said, would you guys be willing to work a target? So we worked a missing person, a little boy that was missing in Hawaii. And then that led us to a police detective. Because of my standing as a reporter, I met with the police detective. I said, look, I'm a remote viewer. We have this group. We're legitimate. And he said, will you be willing to work a target? And so I tasked a target of a guy that was missing. He'd gone on a hike in the mountains. And the viewers, we did a project, gave a full report. And what they saw was a guy climbing a mountain, walking on a muddy trail, and he slipped and he fell down a cliff. And we did a lot of work on it, and we showed it to the detective, and he said, this boy's mother is coming to Hawaii, and she's just distraught. And he goes, I don't know what to tell her. I'm at my wit's end. Would you be willing to meet with her? So we met with her. We showed her the work, and she goes, I believe you. I thank you. And she accepted that that's what she thought. Her son had maybe been abducted or was, in something nefarious, but she accepted that it was an accident. And she thanked us profusely, and she donated. We had a 501c3 nonprofit group. She gave a little donation. So we've done some work for law enforcement. It's not a good idea for remote viewers to just do a lot of UFO targets or do a lot of missing person targets. The missing person targets, they're not pleasant, and it's not good for your psychological well-being. You should do those few and far between. But we've done a few of them.
Very interesting. We got one more caller before we wrap up the show. Who do we have?
This is Tom.
Hey, Tom, you got a question for Dick?
Yes, sir. Dick, I was just wondering, considering what's going on in our country right now financially, if you have done anything pertaining to looking how the future looks for, say, 25, 26 financially for this country.
That's exactly what we look at futureforecastinggroup.com. I just did a debriefing today with 5 of our remote viewers that we did for our subscribers on what we see in the month of July. We did a report in May where we had forecast a war, bombs going off, missiles flying. We had forecast riots in Los Angeles. And we look at that. We see, to give it to you really quickly, we're in the transition to a new financial system. It's all going to go digital. The current financial system cannot continue. The U.S. is $37 trillion in debt. No one wants to buy our bonds. So we see turmoil and upheaval, and we see a transition, an emergence of a digital cryptocurrency-based system.
That is very interesting. Again, too, Tom, that was a very good question. Okay, we're going to take one more caller, and then we're going to wrap it up here. Okay, caller, who do we have?
Hi, I'm John, calling from Tennessee.
Hi, John, from Tennessee. How is the weather in Tennessee?
It's beautiful. So now we've had a really mild time of it. It's getting a little hot. We've had a great spring and summer so far.
You got a question for Dick?
I do. I wonder if you'd comment about veritasium. Cliff I had a very interesting prediction about that a long time ago in his data, his WebBot data.
Reggie Middleton, interesting guy. He does have the patent. I never bought Veritasium. I was given some as a gift. Is it even trading anymore? I thought it was a dead token. I would not invest in Veritasium. I haven't. I think, Reggie is a smart guy. Cliff High has made some amazing predictions. I'm friends with Cliff. I talk with him all the time. I wouldn't. I have a little Veritasium. Last I looked, I don't think it was worth anything. So I don't think Veritasium is going to light the world on fire. I could be wrong.
Okay. Well, Well, I just ended up with some, and I was just wondering about that. What you thought?
I'm more of a fan of XRP, HBAR, SUI. You know those?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, you're a crypto guy. We could talk all night. SUI, HBAR, XRP,
sure.
that's what I've been buying.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. See that you knew?
Hyperliquid, we just did a remote viewing on that. I just bought a little of that. There's the ones that are ISO 222 compliant. The people that run the world, they tell us what they're doing. If you pay attention, it's all there. The information's there. You can see where it's like if somebody told you, hey, this guy named Bill Gates is making something called software. He's going to have a company called Microsoft. If you invest in it, you'll get rich. In 1984, if you would have known that, or Apple, or Tesla, or all those. That's what cryptos is today. Hey, thanks. That's a good call. I'll talk your ears off about cryptos.
You have a good weekend, caller.
You too.
Okay. Yeah, speaking about Bill Gates, I knew Bill Gates when him and his buddy got a piece of software called Seattle DOS. And they came up to me and they were showing it to me. And I was looking at it like, wow, okay. And they said, oh, it's going to make us millionaires. And they bought it for like $20.
Yeah.
At a garage sale. Yeah. It made them billionaires. Yeah.
But see, I think the Bill Gates family was part of IBM. IBM is one of the foundational companies that we'll do a program on one day. I'll explain how blockchain technology actually predates this civilization. Blockchain, you want to get far into the woods. Blockchain technology is going to be the commercial transaction foundation of us interacting with ET. If you really want to go deep, we're not going to be shipping gold to the next planet. They're going to do it by quantum entanglement transmissions of blockchain technology. And technology is rolled out through IBM, through people like Elon Musk. It's all there, and it's given to humanity in its own time to watch our civilization flourish and grow.
Yeah, well, if we have a civilization in the near future that keeps growing, that's what I am really worried about. I'm losing my voice tonight. You know that.
Well, yeah, we're getting old. I am too. I got a little scratchy voice. Gary, you're a great host. I really like talking with you. This has been good fun. Time has just been flying by.
Yeah, I enjoyed having you on. Well, of course, you're an old broadcast. Oh, we got one more caller, and then that has to be the last.
Good. I love the callers.
Yeah,
great callers.
So do I. Okay, caller, who do we have out there?
Hi, yeah, it's Brad from Canada.
Yeah, hi, Brad from Canada.
Question about Ed Dames did a video about the kill shot, about a solar flare. Is that something that's possible in the future?
Well, I like Ed. He's a friend. I've known him for. I met Ed in 1997. I went to the Big Island when he was teaching class. I met Ed and Joni Duroff, and he's got a little bit of a showman in him, and people like to be scared, so he comes on and he scares people. A lot of what he's predicted hasn't come true. So eventually, at some point, the sun is going to expand and will eat Earth, but I don't think it's going to be in the next few years. I think we have other things to worry about. I really try to avoid fear porn in my remote viewing. We try to be responsible. We don't want to scare people and tell them to go sell their house and find their refuge and go live in a cave. We had a remote viewing on the October 7th. We saw that coming. We knew a big event, and we had a meeting where we go, do we publicize this? How do we don't want to, we don't want to be irresponsible. So we downplay it like, okay, there could be a big event that changes things. So we try to be careful with that stuff and try to not be too sensational and try not to.
Okay, but here's the thing, Dick. And sorry to butt in, caller, but hey, Dick, what happens if you remote view something and then you find out something major is going to happen, like society is going to end in like 1 year? Would you feel you would have to give that out to somebody, or would you keep that away from everybody?
Why? We'd have to cross that bridge when we came to it. Like, I don't think civilization is going to end in 1 year.
I just use that as an example.
We would definitely have a team meeting on that one. Like, do we publicize? No, we're not gonna go tell people the world's ending. Even if we got that data, we would be very careful about that.
Well, like an asteroid. Let's say you remote viewed an asteroid, and then you remote view it, and it's going to slam in the Earth, let's say, in 14 days. Would you feel, as somebody that did news, old school news, would you at that point have mixed feelings and say, I need to go to whoever and release this information? Or would you feel like, you know what, why torment the people? Let them have those good 14 days.
That's a really interesting ethical question. I think the way it would manifest in our remote viewing data, we wouldn't understand the scale of it, so we would probably publicize it, but not put a scale on it. We knew something. When we were doing the October 7th, when Hamas attacked Israel, and that was the precursor to what we just saw last weekend when the U.S. actually bombed Iran. So we were working a different target. We were working a future target that had to do with medical technology. None of the remote viewers got any data relating to the medical technology target. What we all got was a new 9/11, bombs, an attack with people being killed suddenly. We described the October 7 attack. We had that in our data, and what happened was we were going to debrief the medical target, but the people that tasked us said, you guys all missed the target. We don't know what to do with this. We need a target for this week. We looked at it, we did analysis, and we said, everybody's seeing the same thing, these bombs going off, this attack, and it's going to be the new 9/11, something that changes the world. And we said, do we put this out? And so we said, we got to be careful with this. We will we'll put it out in private, document it, timestamp it, but be very careful and we'll downplay it. So we had it, and it was publicly verified. And then when the attack happened on October 7th, we went, oh, that's what we were seeing. But we didn't specifically target that event. It was another target unrelated. It's what we call luminosity. It was like such a big event with so much impact that we were drawn to that while we were viewing another target.
Very interesting.
Yeah, that's a good ethical question. If the asteroid was hitting, yeah, we'd have to cross that bridge when we came to it. We try to be careful. We try to be, reasonable and responsible with what we're doing.
I don't blame you. Plus, I again, too, if you have made a statement and it didn't happen, then your credibility, is gone. So, I mean.
Well, remote viewing is not 100%. We can be wrong. I can show you plenty of sessions where it's embarrassing. Like it just doesn't work sometimes. Sometimes your mind will fool you. You'll get an idea of what you think it is, and you'll follow your imagination. We're pretty consistent now, but not 100%. We can be wrong.
Well, Dick, I really enjoyed having you on the show. We need to get you on here in the next few months again and have part 2. You know that.
We'll talk about the future and the new system, and there are a few historical targets we've done and UFO targets that we didn't have time to get to. So I'd love to talk to you again. Gary, you're a great host. By the way, you have the most awesome bumper music. That first acoustic song about the suicide, what song was that? I got to talk to your producer and get that. That was.
Well, we'll get that one over to you. Well, my friend, I want you to have a great weekend. Will you?
I will have a wonderful. Hey, I'm in Hawaii. It's still light out. It's a beautiful day here in Hawaii. So sun's just starting to go down. You have a great weekend. I really enjoyed talking with you. Great host.
Okay, my
I love
friend.
this.
You take
Thank
care.
you.
Well, Mr. JC, what is going on? We have one show next week, and then I have to go have some surgery done, I hope. I get that taken. But who do we have on next week, and what are we going to be talking about?
Well, we're having Mr. Todd Curtis come on July 4th. Yes, July 4th, a Friday. And he's going to be talking about the dangers of UAPs, UFOs, whatever you want to call them, with pilots today, in the past and the future. What's going on? Are they a danger? What can we do about it, Gary?
Well, there is a danger. You wonder sometimes of these plane crashes, could they have been involved with a UAP? No, wait a minute. A flying disc? No. Flying saucer, UFO, whatever we're going to call them. You know, again, I think about my friend I used to know back in the early 80s. Maybe it was late 70s. He was a vice president of Republic Airlines, which was a major worldwide airline. And we talked one night about, UFOs and all that. And he explained to me, JC, and I said this to, my old listeners will remember this. In Vietnam, when he was in the Air Force, he was a colonel. He used to fly from Guam over to Vietnam, North Vietnam, and what he called drop the eggs, which were the bombs. And after one of the missions, he was flying back to the base, and his co-pilot, hey, look out your window. And he looked out his side window, and there was a UFO right off the wing. Now, it wasn't egg shape, it wasn't a triangle, it was a disc. And he said it followed him for a few minutes, and then it zapped off, like instantly gone. Zip! And he made the mistake. He got on the horn, which was the radio, and he got hold of the base and said, hey, there's a UFO following us off the wing. And he was instructed, JC, when he landed, none of him or his crew were to leave the B-52 to security came, and they surrounded with weapons. They surrounded his plane, and then they literally tore the people out, the crew members out of the plane, and put them in separate jeeps and took them into some building where they were, debriefed. And he was told if because he wanted to become a brigadier general before he retired. That was his goal. But they said after he got on that microphone and announced that there was a UFO on it, his military career was over with.
Yeah, things were different. Matter of fact, there's two famous cases. 1952, Mantell, the pilot in Kentucky, thought he seen a UFO chasing it, and of course, I think it was a Mustang. A P-51 crash, and then there was a case in Australia in 1977. Commercial pilot, or just a small plane. The guy crashed. You got on tape. Oh, it's getting closer, and then poof, nothing. They never did find this plane.
Well, a retired 2-star general I talked to a couple of years ago that was going to write a book, but I don't know whatever happened to him because I talked to him for a couple hours over a period of a week or two, and then no more, nada. And I verified he was who he said he was. But he said that, a lot of these training missions with the Air Force and Navy, because he was assigned to the Pentagon, they put it down as a training accident where the plane crashes and the crew, are dead. He said that those, on some of those cases, weren't training missions. They were intercepting a unidentified object. And then, they lost contact with the craft. Next thing they know, that there was wreckage.
Yeah, there was another famous case. Military plane went down in Lake Superior. There's been several over the years of crashes linked to UFOs. So yeah, there's a lot going on there. There's a lot of dangers. Think about it. Look at some of the videos that's been these UFOs flying by. Imagine being sitting in one of the big commercial plane, you're looking out the window, and here comes this UFO flying by at about 1,000 miles an hour, real close to the wing.
Yeah, it's scary. Anyway, we're going to wrap this up here tonight, but if you want to listen to more shows, if you need something to put you to sleep, just go to our website, nightdreamstalkradio.com. You don't have to pay. You don't have to join some club. You can just go on to our player. There's over 1,100 past shows, all kinds of topics of the paranormal, alternative talk radio. You can listen to it free. You don't have to pay. Or you can go on to our YouTube channel and listen to, well, we used to have a lot more, but for some reason, some of them disappeared. There's over, I think, close to 200 shows you can listen to, and, from Stephen Greer, Steve Bassett, Andrew, the lawyer, the time travel lawyer, a lot of different things. Dr. Alan Miller, which is kind of interesting, some of his stuff he said.
Yeah, definitely a lot of good shows on the website to tune into. Plus, we're on the YouTube, definitely.
Yeah, and we're on all the major apps, so, and we're heard worldwide. Check out our website at nightdreamstalkradio.com. If you want to maybe be a guest of the show, or you got a question you want to ask me, just go to your Gmail, nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com. Love to hear from you. We're over 300,000 subscribers on YouTube.
308 the last I looked.
Yeah, very close to 309 right now. And one thing is strange before I let you go. Somebody has been pranking me because I've been getting people coming to the studio saying that they're here for a job interview. So somebody's been putting out there that we're looking for somebody. No, I got 3 staff members. That's all I need at this point.
Yeah, that sounds like.
Could you imagine though somebody coming up there and saying, "Here, I got an interview," huh?
Yeah, it's weird, strange.
Yeah, now that all happened this past week. So what can I say?
Yeah, that's.
You got anything? You must be tired. You got anything going? You gonna go fishing tomorrow?
Depends on the heat. It's been 105 degrees every day for about 2 weeks now. So yeah, if the heat's not too bad, yeah. Definitely.
Well, get some dry ice and put it in a bag and put it in like a adult Depends diaper and go down there and fish.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do that already.
Well, tell everybody, who did we have on chat here tonight before we go?
Oh, gee, Metatron.
Tom, how are you doing out there?
Cat Town and Polly Rotman and. Let's see, who else was on there? There was a bunch of people. X question mark was on there, and Kel and December and Barb and of course I can't even think of his name now. Art was on there.
That was actually like a bunch of people. At one point there was like over 50 on chat.
Yeah, there was over 50. Of course, a lot of them are they're listening, but if they don't comment anything, we can't see their name.
And feel free to call in when we're on too. That's the whole point of the show. We're family. Everybody have a good one. We will catch you on the other side next week. So we'll be back. You take care.
Who's friends with all the night dreamers talking to you at night? Gary on the radio, but maybe he's not in sight. Bigfoot's on his tail, flying UFOs, that's right. Gary's Talk Show Radio, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday nights. If you need a friend to talk to, he will always be there. The Night Dreamers Talk Show will fix your despair. If you want to talk conspiracies, Night Dreamers is for you.
Do you have a mother with a weird sense of humor? We have the perfect solution to your potential gift-giving conundrum. Buy for Mom this great read, The Expectant Mother Disinformation Handbook. It's the latest book by Robert Guffey, author of Chameleon. In the pages of the handbook, you will learn about the dangers of allowing your fetus an in utero internet connection, the growing problem of terrorism in the womb, and the little-known fact that Shakespeare created pregnancy, among other esoteric secrets. The Expectant Mother Disinformation Handbook is available directly from Madness Heart Press and Amazon.com.
No infants were harmed in the making of this handbook.
The Expectant